Hello, buddy. Welcome back. I'm the Strategy Professor, and today we're going to be doing our tier list for 1023 for the mages. This is preseason with the new items, so if you enjoy the content, please be sure to like and subscribe. It really helps out a ton on the channel. We stream every night starting around midnight Eastern Standard Time. Very friendly, chill community. We'd love to have you on YouTube. I try to explain as much as I can about the game that I'm playing, but I also try to hold a conversation with the chat about League or anything else that y'all want to talk about. So come on by, hang out, and check out the rest of the content on the channel as well. I'm going to be doing a tier list and an item breakdown for each one of the roles, and every single patch I always do new patch notes, new tier lists, and I'm going to be adding a bunch more guides for the preseason in terms of individual champion guides and just different kinds of tactical guides. So check that out, tons and tons of content. And I try to give you real, honest insight into the content as well, not just all caps, not just like funky builds, but stuff to actually help you improve and gain some ranks in the preseason. And I will say, ranks do matter in the preseason because when the ladder gets reset around like January 8th, I think is what they're saying in the client, then it's based on what your previous rank was. So if right now you're silver 4 and you get to gold 4 in the preseason, you will be placed as though you were gold 4. So you'll likely end up in mid-silver. But if you just stay in mid-silver, then you're likely to get placed in mid-bronze. So gaining ranks now translates into getting ranks later when the season actually starts. So you do want to try, you do want to do well. Okay, let's go ahead and get in here. I think I'll just go ahead and start just by showing you the items and just kind of walking through the items, and then we'll go into the tier list itself here. Okay, so I'm going to be focusing, I'll talk about the 80 items a little bit. I think that in general, the 80 champions are overblown by the all caps videos and challengers, you know, like stomping people on the PvE, stomping iron players in the PvE and going 22-0 with Dustblade and saying, oh my god, you know, Dustblade's OP. So I'm going to try to add a little bit more context to you. And I've played quite a few games on the preseason. I'm actually 100%. I'm like 14-0 or something on my gold account in the preseason at least. And then I was 2-1 on the diamond account. So I played a pretty good amount on the PvE too, probably about 30 games. So I'm pretty familiar, I think, with a lot of the new items. So anyways, let's start with the mages, and then we'll do the assassins. So Tear of the Goddess got changed. I think this item is really bad. On 80 carries, it's super bad. Don't ever get that Mura mana unless you absolutely have to. On some champs might still have to get it, but even on mages, I think that it's a lot weaker now because when you complete it and get it all the way up to Seraphs, it doesn't have the shield on it anymore. All it does is gives you more mana, and you already have a lot of mana by that point. So it feels pretty rough. It looks like it's a lot cheaper, like, oh, it's only 400 gold, and it only takes 450 to stack. But the issue is you only get a charge every 8 seconds, and you have to get champions to get like a reasonable, you know, rate of finishing it. Right? If you only hit minions every 8 seconds, it's only 3 bonus mana, and it's going to take you forever. The vast majority of people that I see that try to stack this don't get it until after 20 minutes, and it's going to be a really fast meta. So I think it's a bait. Yes, it does give you pretty good ability power. You're probably going to get to like 120 or so ability power. Maybe not even that much. 5% of your max mana if you have like 2,000 mana. So it would be 50. Yeah. You'll probably get somewhere between like 125, 150 mana if you complete this item. I will say as well, keep in mind there are a lot fewer mana items in the game as well, right? The only items that you can buy, I think, that are like mainstream items that have mana on them now are the mythics. So you'd be priced into either getting Leandries or Ludens, and those are okay, but Presence of Mind no longer gives you 500 max mana, so that's going to impact this a lot. And then there aren't like stuff like Lichbane doesn't give you mana anymore. So there are several items that have been adjusted to not add mana. So there's just a lot less mana in the game in general. Hi, Rory. Good job. You found us, didn't you? So yeah, I think it's pretty weak, especially because it doesn't have the shield. Okay, be careful with that. You want some of Daddy's MMs? And then let's see what else got adjusted as far as like components. There aren't that many. Sheen is now, it doesn't have mana on it, and it builds into Lichbane. We'll talk about Lichbane in a little bit, so it's okay. It does cost a lot less. It's 700, so I think it used to cost 1050 and used to give 250 mana, so it's about cost neutral. You just don't have the mana on it anymore. Oblivion Orb. Now, this is a fantastic change. I talked about this in my support tier list video, that now this is basically like Executioners. You get about 600 or so gold worth of value and ability power, then you're paying about 200 to 150 worth of gold for the Grievous Wounds. This is awesome. This means you don't have to get Morellonomicon in order to get the Grievous Wounds. You can actually get it early. Just drop 800 gold to stop that Aatrox from going off, or stop, you know, some other massive lifesteal champ from, you know, just wrecking everybody. So that's really, really handy that you can get that early on. So yeah, that's a huge buff. Seeker's Arm Guard as a component is a massive buff too. I think it has slightly less stats. I don't remember exactly what the base stats were originally, but I do know that it costs 1100. Now it only costs 900. So this is an excellent answer to like early game Zed or early game Talon or whatever. You can just get that Seekers, and then you can complete your Mythic after that. So fantastic upgrade. It's going to give mages a lot more game against AD champions early. Hextech Alternator is also fantastic. This is very similar to the Hextech Revolver of old, but now it triggers from dealing damage to a champion, so it triggers on spells. I'm pretty sure the Alternator, you had to auto-attack them. So this is going to be a lot better on mages that want to poke from longer range. So Hextech Alternator, fantastic little early game item. You're basically paying about 200 gold for the that revved passive, but very strong. Verdant Barrier is a new thing that builds into Banshees, and it's okay. It's basically just like an Arm Guard. It does cost more. It costs 300 more, so that's kind of a feels bad, and has less AP on it. So I think it's significantly worse than Arm Guard, but if you do want to get a Banshees as like a third or a fourth item, it's a decent pickup. But as sort of a component, it's not going to be as strong as Arm Guard. Blighting Jewel, this is fantastic. This is a new item that builds into Void Staff. So Void Staff has a similar build in terms of like Blasting Wand and Amp Tome, but now you have this extra intermediary step with Blighting Jewel, so you don't have to wait for 1365 to complete your Void Staff. So this is awesome. It feels so much better to be able to just have something you can do with your money while you're waiting on Void Staff. And Void Staff itself is a little bit cheaper. It did lose, I think, 5 ability power, but it's 150 gold cheaper. So Void Staff's a real big ticket. We'll talk about that. Very, very good item to get now, for a bunch of reasons. Lost Chapter now only builds into the mana items. I think it's basically the same thing, so still really good if you need a lot of mana. And then Leeching Leer builds into Riftmaker, and this is a Spell Vamp item. I haven't done the exact cost analysis on that. It's like, what, 4 something, and then like 350, so that's 750. So the Omni Vamp looks like it's pretty expensive. Looks like it's about 60 gold per percentage of Omni Vamp, something like that. So very expensive, but it can be really good if you want to go up to Riftmaker, which we'll talk about here in a little bit. So okay component, but only builds into one item. Probably won't see it all the time. Mage Eyes in general is a lot worse, I think, because it does have 100 health on it, but it also costs 200 extra gold. So for a snowball item to cost 1600, that's like super risky. I just don't think it's worth it in the vast majority of situations. So pretty big nerf to that. Void Staff, I just talked about a little bit. This item is fantastic. I recommend getting this second on a lot of champions out there, or third at the latest, just because a lot of these items do a lot of extra damage, and so getting the spell pin not only applies to your spells themselves, but it applies to the items and it applies to your runes. If you're gonna run, you know, Electrocute or Comet or whatever, having that extra spell vamp or the spell penetration is a very big deal. And I even tested this out. I did Zyra's support testing this out, but like Void Staff versus Demonic Embrace, I think. And it was doing way, way more damage than Demonic Embrace was. It was even doing more damage than pre-nerf Leandries, back when Leandries would give you up to that 25% spell pin. So it does some really serious damage. It'll be surprising just how much damage this does, even against low MR targets, like 50 magic resist targets, just 80 carries with runes that are like level 6 or 7. It's going to put out a lot of damage. So, and especially on tanks that are going to be stacking up magic resist, it's going to be a really solid item. So yeah, that's going to be good. Morello, I would not complete this item now. It's a lot cheaper, but it has less ability power, and it doesn't have the flat pin. That's the big difference, I think, between old builds and new builds that you're going to experience, is you can't get that double pin with the Sork boots into the old Oblivion Orb anymore. A lot of champs really didn't like to get that anyways, but it was a really, really strong early game power spike. So that's not available, and the Morellonomicon is now just ability power plus health plus Grievous Wounds. It's okay. You're still paying like 200 or 300 gold for the Grievous Wounds, and you don't get anything special out of it. or that special. So I recommend just not completing this item in the vast majority of situations unless you're just super rich and you have to have Oblivion Orb and super rich and you have to have Oblivion Orb and you just want to be slot efficient and just finish it off. But yeah, I would not complete it under most circumstances. You do get 60% Grievous Wounds against targets that are below 50% health, so stuff that's going to have like some mega lifesteal, like your Aatroxes and maybe Red Cane and stuff like that. Maybe this is a good idea, but in general, I think that it's not worth completing. Zhonya's fantastic, only 2,500 gold now. You do have the cheaper Seekers, which is great, but then the entire thing is only 2,500 instead of 2,900. Massive, massive deal. This is very, very big on any champion that's going to get Zhonya's. You'll notice a lot of champions that are up near the top of the tier list that we talk about here in a second are going to be Zhonya's users because this is a big, big buff for Zhonya's. So, really big deal. I think it did lose some ability power. It may have lost 10 ability power on it. But who cares? I'll trade that any day of the week for something that's 400 gold cheaper. And then Banshee, same drill. 10.
Hello, Mom and Dad.
Hi. But it's 10 ability power less, but it's also way cheaper. So now this is great on those engaged champs, like stopping the blitz hooks, stopping, just ash arrows, any sort of big engages. This is really, really nice. So you just have this great suite of 2,500 gold items now where you have the big DPS item if you want that, and then you also have these two little like utility items. So in a lot of games, you're going to get some kind of mythic, like Night Harvester into Void Staff into either Zhonya's or Banshees. So I think that's really, really good. Very cheap items. It's fantastic. Rory, Daddy's working, okay? We'll hang out in just a second. Archangels talked about that week. Not worth getting most of the time. Dad's on the island. Lichbane, I think this is actually a lot stronger. It doesn't have the mana on it. It is 200 gold cheaper. They did hot nerf this a little bit from the patch notes, so it's still good though. It's got 80 ability power, which is somewhere in the neighborhood of like 1,800 gold, 1,700 gold, and then 10% move speed is probably like 2,300 gold or so. Move speed's kind of overpriced, but it's about 2,300 gold. And so you're paying about 700 for the Sheen proc on it, but it's got normal Sheen damage, which is actually even more than normal. It's 150% your base AD, and then 50% magic damage. Now the difference here, I believe the old Lichbane was something like 75% of your base AD and 50% magic scaling. This was 60% magic scaling, but they nerfed it by 10%. So I think it does a lot more damage, especially early on in the game when your base AD is much higher relative to your AP and relative to the HP of other people in the game. It's going to do a lot more damage. So if you're getting this like second item, it's gonna really pop them, I think. So stuff like Fizz, Echo, things like that are gonna get this second and are looking for those like quick kills and snowballs are really gonna like this item. So it's very good. And those champions didn't really care for the mana anyways, so they'll take that any day of the week. A little bit more damage, cheaper price, absolutely. So great item. Rylai's, this is a significant nerf. I don't think you're ever gonna want to get this item. Maybe ever is a strong word, but the Leandries doesn't require the person to be slowed anymore. It doesn't get any extra damage from that, and that was really the combo, was you'd go Leandries plus Rylai's, so you'd get the double damage on the old Leandries. You don't have to do that anymore, and it costs 400 more gold. So it used to be 2,600, and I think it was almost the same thing, 90 ability power, 350 health, and a slow. So you do get a bigger slow now. It was 15%, now it's 30%, which you can definitely see the difference. That really slows people, especially if you have like a Cassiopeia or an Azir or something like that that can just keep applying the slow. I mean, it's a really big slow, but is it worth paying 400 more gold for that slow? Probably not. It is still like decently efficient. I mean, 90 ability power is a lot for an item. So, I mean, that's still going to be like 1,900 or so gold, and then probably like 800, 900 on the health. It's probably like 900 on the health. So you're not paying that much for the slow. You're only paying 200 or 300 gold. But the problem is, like, there's just other options that do other things that are stronger, like Lichbane procs, or like the Zhonya's active, or the Banshee barrier, or whatever, that are just cheaper So it's not that it's like a terrible item, it's just there are better choices. And someone mentioned before, oh, I can look up all the efficiencies on the League Wiki. I do that, and in a lot of my videos, I typically will run that down, but I just don't do that right now while I'm just looking live on the server because I don't want to like jump back and forth. I guess I could have a spreadsheet or something on the side with it, but whatever. Ballpark is fine for this, I think. Nashers. So this changed, and it's good in some ways, and it's weaker in other ways. So it does not have the ability haste on it anymore. So it lost the 20% CDR, but it got 20 ability power. So that's not exactly cost neutral. That's a little bit less efficient, but the scaling on it is much better. So it used to only scale with 15% of your AP on hit, and now it scales with 25% of your AP on hit. So that's a pretty big deal. You know, if you have 100 AP, that's going to give you an extra 10 ability power, and that would put it over the line. So I guess even just scaling with itself, it is more cost efficient than it was. It's all about the extra DPS and it not the or actually no, it needs more than that, because 20% CDR is like 540 value, and 20 extra AP is like 435. So yeah, I think that's right. When you get the extra, when it scales with itself, it's going to be like maybe 100 or 200 more gold efficient than it was. So very strong item on certain champions that want this. So like Azir, this is fantastic on Azir. I think a lot of people are sleeping on Azir. If you've watched Jason and I play, my friend that I duo with sometimes, who's a one-trick Azir, this item is really clapping some people now. And on someone like Kale as well, it's going to be fantastic. So the few champions that actually use this, especially if they weren't like super hurting for the CDR, then it's going to be a very, very good pickup. Horizon Focus is the next one. This is very situational. I don't think it's that great on most champions, like the ultra long range pokers, the Vel'Koz, Xerath, Lux, that type of stuff. Maybe it's good, but you're paying a lot. You're paying like 800 gold for that. Hyper Shot. It does work on immobilizing champs too. I mean, I've seen this on stuff like you could use it on like an Annie or something maybe, or like Malphite. So I've seen it on some things, like basically big AoE stuff, but I feel like it's kind of a trap item. I mean, just getting something like Void Staff is probably more damage because of the spell pin, and it's cheaper. So I don't know. It's situational, but I think maybe on poke champs. Now, I don't think that, I was going to say maybe this is better for true damage because spell penetration doesn't matter for true damage, but I'm not sure. It increases their damage taken from you by 10%. I don't know if that applies to true damage. I will say I thought about using this on Zyra, but it does not work on Teemo Shrooms or Zyra plants or any other kind of pet like Tibbers. So it says it right there, pets and non-immobilizing traps do not trigger this effect. So this would have been a cool item on like Teemo or something maybe, but yeah, in general, it's extremely niche. I think there's going to be better choices. Now, Cosmic Drive, this is a very interesting one on certain champs. I feel like this can kind of be a trap item sometimes, but sometimes it can be really good. So the 70 ability power is nice. That's like 1,500 gold, and then you got a 500 from the Hells. That's, you know, about 2,000. And then ability haste, that much ability haste is going to be something like 810. So you're pretty much paying just 200 gold or so in order to get the extra movement speed. Once again, ballpark numbers, but about 200 gold to get the movement speed, which is pretty good. So that's a nice collection of stats. I don't think I would rush this, but on certain champions that really want the CDR, and that also really want to move quick. So I've seen like Echo use this to good effect before. Rakan is someone as a support. Obviously, I don't think you'd run Rakan middle. He might be okay middle now, honestly. I've been having great success with him in bot lane. But those types of champs that just really want the movement speed, maybe someone like Ryze would really like something like this. Cassio.
Can you open this?
Okay. There you go.
You're welcome.
Good job. Thank you, Roy. So yeah, it's okay. It's neat, but it is going to be lower damage. It's significantly lower damage than Void Staff, and probably lower damage than Demonic Embrace, which we'll talk about. And, you know, it doesn't have the same kind of utility that Zanya's or Banshee's has. So I think it might just be a case of, like, cool item that just doesn't really slot in to a lot of builds. It's just very niche, but I don't know. It certainly is interesting. It certainly is interesting for certain types of champs and builds. Then you have Demonic Embrace. So this one is kind of a trap item. It is really good on champs that have dots. So things like Teemo, Malzahar, Brand, because the dots refresh. So like if something ticks damage for 4 seconds, that lasts, so it would burn for those 4 seconds, but then it would burn for 4 seconds after the dot ends. So anything that has dots on it is probably going to like something like this. I don't know if I said Malzahar. Malzahar is another one that's really been using this well. So this is nice. It's got the 70 ability power, which you'll notice is kind of standard, about 70-ish on a lot of these items. Is kind of like the new norm for a lot of kind of these mid-ticket items. So 70 ability power. It's got the health on it. Good on something like a Swain also. So stuff that might actually take some hits. This is very good against assassins. We'll talk about that in a second. You'll notice a lot of these items have health on them too. Like Demonic Embrace has health. Cosmic Drive has health. Rylai's has health on it. So Morello has health on it. So you're a lot harder to burst down as mages now than people might initially suspect. And then you do 1.5% of their magic damage to their health for 4 seconds, and you gain some armor and magic resist. So overall, pretty good item. You know, you're paying about like 800 gold or something ish for that passive, but it does give you 10 armor and 10 magic resist. So that right there gives you an extra 400 gold worth of value. So for just the damage portion of it, you're probably paying somewhere in the neighborhood of 300 to 400 gold. So it's pretty good. It's pretty good. It does cost more though. It's 3,000 versus a lot of these are 2,500. And then Death Cap, it does cost 200 more gold than it used to. I think it was 3,600, but it has basically the same thing. And you might be thinking, well, that's bad, but it actually can be pretty good as a third or a fourth item, just because these things all have a magic damage scaling, and a lot of runes that are popular right now, like Electrocute on assassins and things like that, are also going to have scaling with AP. So there's a lot of just runes and items and things like that that are scaling with AP. So, and like Lichbane scales with AP. So if you get something like you're a Fizz and you get something like Night Harvester and Lichbane, that's 2 items that scale with AP, in addition to probably having Electrocute, which is going to be another thing that scales with AP. So that's why they made it more. It's because a lot of the items you're going to get are going to scale with AP. So it's low key, like probably stronger than people think it is, even though on the surface it looks like a nerf. Okay, then we'll hit the mythics real quick, and then we'll go into it. Mages have the best selection of mythics, I think. There are actually a lot of them that are pretty viable in a bunch of different situations, and there's just 6 of them, period. Now, I think that the best one, I'll just come out and say, is Night Harvester. This thing, so many people sleep on this. This is a phenomenal item. It's so good that I get it on almost every support right now that I play, whether it's Enchanter, whether it's Rakan, obviously not on something like a Leona, but anything that like has AP ratios and is ranged and like does benefits from magic, this is going to be great on. I highly suspect they'll nerf this at some point, although a lot of the all caps videos aren't talking about this item. There are some that are talking about it, but so many other ones, are talking about other items like Leandri's Anguish and Riftmaker. But this just works. It's guaranteed. It has really big numbers, and it just works. That's why I like this item. It's got, nice ability power, health, ability haste. A lot of these items are very similar. There's some tweaks of their stuff, but it's literally the same stats as something like Hextech Rocket Belt. But the thing about Hextech Rocket Belt, and I'll just compare it to this one, is this like shoots out little bolts and does a little bit more damage, 200 to 300 damage on a 40-second cooldown. But you have to actually hit people with the bolts, right? So if they're behind minions, or you just miss, or they dodge it, or whatever, or they're all just like spread out, then you're not going to be able to hit a lot of people with the bolts. But this thing, all you have to do is just damage anybody by any means. You don't have to CC them, nothing. You just touch them with anything, and you deal 175 to 250 damage. So by the time you complete it, it's like 200 damage instantly to them. And this is on a 40-second per champion cooldown. So if you're in a fight and there's 5 other people in a fight, you can just hit everybody with this in a fight if you're some kind of AoE mage type of champ. So you don't have to worry about, oh, well, I just proto-belted, but, it only hit like 2 or 3 of them. Now you can hit all of them on that kind of cooldown. And you can even kill like your mid laner with Night Harvester and then go rotate bottom and then kill the bot laner, 20 seconds later, because it's not on the item itself does not have the cooldown. It's on a per champion cooldown. Unlike Proto Belt, you kill one person with this, you got to wait 40 seconds to kill somebody else. So that's what I really like about Night Harvester. It just works. It's guaranteed. You can't mess it up. There's no outplay potential whatsoever from them. It just works. And you do get that little bit of bonus movement speed, which can come in handy. You know, getting the 25% bonus movement speed for 1.5 seconds. I'm not sure why that item has that. It doesn't need it, but it is really nice on champions that like the movement speed. So I think that's low-key the most powerful one right now for a lot of champions that a lot of people are sleeping on. And it does its damage up front, which Proto Belt does that too. But it does the damage up front. So you don't have to wait on dots. You don't have to wait 5 seconds to charge up before you start doing the big damage. Just does up front, huge damage, guaranteed to work. That's why I love that item. The Proto Belt, since I already mentioned it, a lot of people are still getting this, I think, just out of habit on things like Fizz, on things like Echo. It is still pretty good. You know, like I said, it does do a little bit more damage. So, like, when you get it, it's probably going to be, like, you know, 240 damage versus, you know, maybe the 200 damage on Night Harvester. But, you know, you do have to actually land the bolts on them. You do get 75% movement speed for 2 seconds when running towards an enemy champion. So this is very good for gap closing. If you're using this on just to get in range for your next jump or something on Echo or Fizz or whatever. So it is still pretty good. I just tend to like Harvester a bit more because it's more guaranteed. It just has less downtime on it. But Proto Belt can still be very good on champions that really want that gap closer. Okay. Riftmaker is the other one that I think is really good against tanks or just fights that are going to go on for a long time. It's a similar stat line. It does have 15% Omnivamp, which is very valuable. You mentioned before, so it has a little bit less health. It's got like 100 less health, but it does have the Omnivamp. So overall, its stats are going to be more valuable, I think, in general. However, it doesn't do any flat base damage. You charge it up over time, and then all of your stuff does an extra 15% damage, and that 15% gets converted over to true damage. This is very good if you think you're going to be facing a lot of magic resist, if you have like 3 AP on your team, or they have 2 or 3 tanks or something. This can be good, but it's not going to be as good in like burst type of situations. So just keep that in mind. If you think the fights are going to go on for at least 5 seconds or longer, there's going to be a lot of proper like big team fights with tanks and stuff like that. This can be very good on like heavy, you know, sustained damage champions. But in general, I feel like it's going to be a little bit weaker compared to some of the other options. The other DPS option here is Leandri's Anguish. Now, these items over here, these next 3 don't have health on them. These all have health, which makes them a lot better against assassins, I think. And that's why I like them in general, if you can manage your mana and get away with it. But Leandri's does have 600 mana on it, which is good. It has a little bit more ability haste than these. So it's got 20 ability haste, 80 ability power. They all have 80 ability power. And then this does 15 flat plus 2.5% of your AP. So it has scaling now. Max health damage per second for 4 seconds. So if you have 100 AP, it would do an extra 2.5% of their max health over time. Or no, I think it's 2.5. It's worded weird here. It's 2.5% of your AP as flat damage. So if you have 100 AP, it would be 17.5 flat burn per second, and then 1% of their max health. Okay, so it's not 2.5% of your AP as a percentage. It turns into flat. So it ends up being pretty good. I mathed this out. It depends on the exact situation, but like if they have about 2,000 health or so, 1,500, 2,000 health, it's going to be about 2.5% of their max health per second. So it's about the same as old Leandri's burn. Maybe a little bit less on targets that are below like 2,000 or 2,500. But on really, if you have a lot of AP, it could be more. Or if they have a lot of max HP, it could potentially be a little bit more. So... anyways, it's similar to old Leandri's burn, but now it gives you 5% magic penetration per second against burning targets, up to 15%. So they just hot nerfed this. It was up to 25% extra penetration, but now it goes 15%. I don't know if this stacks additively or multiplicatively with Void Staff, but it's a lot of damage. It is a lot of damage on that burn. So any sort of like dot type of champion, like I said earlier, the Malzahars, the Brands, anything with pets, you know, like Annie or something like that could be good. Teemo Shrooms. Stuff like that would be really good. However, I think in like probably in longer fights, it depends on the type of champ, but I think Rift is going to put out more against tanks, especially after that nerf. I'm not really sure. I'd have to like it probably depends on the champion and sort of the nature of the damage that you're doing, but I feel like Rift would definitely be really competitive with Leandries in like versus, you know, 3-item Ornn or something like that, trying to take down something like that. Rift might end up being better than that, but anyways, it's still going to be a pretty good item. And then Ludens, I think, is a little overrated. I've seen a lot of people going Ludens. This is for like really big poke champions. You do have the flat penetration, which is very good. However, this is on a much later item. So it's on a 3,400 gold item instead of a 1,600 gold item on the old Oblivion Orb. So you do have the flat pin, which is nice. This has the lowest ability haste. It has 10 less ability haste. But it only does 100 flat damage to an individual target. Now, that does bounce and can hit 3 nearby targets. So if people are all clumped up in a team fight, yes, this is great. Every time you trigger it, it's like 400 damage with a 0.6 ratio, pretty much. So yes, very strong if everybody's grouped up and you're poking them. It does have a 10-second cooldown, though, so it can be up more for poke. And it does give you 30% movement speed for 2 seconds. So there are situations where if you're poking every 10 seconds, if you have like a Zerath or a Vel'Koz or something, and you consistently hit your poke, you know, twice within 40 seconds with the Harvester time, then it could potentially put out more damage. Or, like I said, if they're all grouped up in a team fight and you hit like 4 people with your proc, even so, like if you hit 4 people with your Night Harvester, though, it's even more damage. So I think this is really only your poke. If you hit them literally once every 15 seconds with a piece of poke or something, it might be better. And this is going to give you better wave clear, so that's nice because it can bounce over to minions because it says enemies, not champions. Now, one thing this does have going for it, though, is it does give 5 flat magic pen per additional legendary item. So that is really nice. That if you have, and I believe, no, boots don't count as legendaries, but in most games you're probably only going to get 3 items, maybe Ludens, boots, 1 other item, and maybe 1 other one. So you're probably going to have like 2.5 or 3 items per game. So, you know, this might give you 5 or 10 extra magic pen. So it is good. I just don't think in a lot of situations it's going to be better than Night Harvester or Leandries. Very specific poke champions. But I see like people rushing Annie, like, or this on Annie and things like that. And I feel like that's really bad. Annie like 100% wants something like Night Harvester just to blow people up and just get it done. Right? Because her Tibber is just running around with his AoE flame would trigger the Night Harvester on everybody in a fight that Tibbers gets close to. Or Proto Belt or something like that, so you can jump and get into range to Tibbers. I just feel like there's a lot better options. Even just like Leandries with Tibbers, constantly like reapplying Leandries to everybody in a team fight, because his little AoE burn that he puts out would apply Leandries to everybody. So I just feel like it's a cool item. It's not that it's bad, it's just that I think there are better options. So it's overrated. Everfrost. Now, this is the one that I think is kind of the one that's really weak on the spectrum overall. It's basically like the old GLP. It's got a pretty good range on it and a nice slow. It's just the damage is low. It's only 100 with 30% magic and a cone. Slows by 65%, which is cool. If it does hit people in the dead center, then they are rooted for 1.5 seconds. So that could be really nice to chain together with some CC. So like maybe with like Lysandra or something, you could go in, you could ult somebody, and then you could, you know, hit them with Everfrost right when they're about to wake up, and you could hit them with your W and just have them chain CC'd for like 5 seconds. So there are definitely situations where this could be really good, but, you know, you don't need them slowed for the Leandries anymore. You can't actually buy this in Leandries, which is a main reason why some of those slows were very good before. Also, that one rune is really off meta right now, the GLP rune. I forgot what it's called. In the utility tree, you almost always want to go stuff like Electrocute or Comet, stuff that scales really well with Spell Pen because Void Staff's so good. So, I don't know. It's underwhelming. It's there might be some situations where it can be good. Like, I guess if, like with Vhagar or something, if you hit him with the root and that guarantees you're going to hit your cage on him, and then you can probably combo him out. So there can be some situations, but the root is a pretty narrow like section in the middle, and the range is not insane. It's okay. It's like 700 or 800 range or something. I mean, I can grab it here real quick. If you just want to because this one you kind of have to look at. So yeah, that's sort of the range there. So if you do it, it's okay, but you know, if the other ones weren't so OP or like weren't so strong, then it would be good. It's just a you know, once again, just a matter of there are all these other choices and most of them are better. Okay, last thing real quick, and then we'll move on. I know we need to do the video. I know this has been a little bit longer on the items, but there just are more mage items and more things going on. As far as assassins go, in the mid lane, I think that Talon and Zed and things like that are a little bit over or like exaggerated, just because there is the cheaper Zanyas now, and their mythics, if we just talk about their mythics real quick, are really low damage. People complain about, oh my god, Duskblade does a lot of damage. It's 100 damage. Yeah, it's got 30% bonus AD scaling on it. AD is a very expensive stat. So, yeah, I mean, it's cool and everything, but it's like, okay, you got 100 damage on that. Let's look at mages, right? Got Harvester does 225. Protobelt does 250. That's 2.5 times the damage when you buy this that Duskblade would give. And it's just a lot easier to... And Leandri's, it depends, but it's a lot. It's similar to Harvester and Protobelt. So it's like, all right, yeah, Duskblade does 100 damage, but... I mean, if you like have the dream scenario, the all caps video where you're a challenger and you've got 10 kills on Talon or something, and it's like you kill all of them and get all these resets on Duskblade, yes, of course it looks good in that scenario, right? But unless you're getting like, you know, 2 or 3 resets in a fight, this is going to be less damage contribution than something like Night Harvester. Now, it does have a good suite of stats for assassins. I'm not saying it's a bad item, right? It's 55 attack damage, still respectable, 18 lethality, and it's got 20 ability haste on it now. I don't think it used to have ability haste. So it's better than it used to be, I think. The main thing with the previous Duskblade, I believe, was every time you went invisible, you got to proc it again. So on something like Kha'Zix, you could proc it multiple times to get the first kill, right? But you can't do that anymore. You have to get the kill, and then on your next couple of kills, you snowball off of it. So, and you go invisible for a little bit. So, I mean, it's cool. On Kha'Zix, it's very good because you get free invisibilities off of it. So, I think it's good on him, and there are a couple other champions where it can be good. But I think it's really, really overblown just how OP people are saying this item is. It's really not that OP most of the time compared to, like, the mage items, for example. Eclipse was really OP, but this thing has been nerfed so many times. It initially did 15% max health damage, and now it only does 6. So it just got hot nerfed yesterday as well. So 6%, it's not really that much, right? If you're against a 2,000 health target, which a lot of people you're assassinating are going to have less health than that, then it's only 120 damage. So it's like, okay, you do get a little shield. So like if you're melee, you would get something like, I don't know, a 200 shield. So that's cool. And it does give you like some bonus movement speed, so it's nice. It's a nice like utility type of item, but it doesn't do nearly the same kind of like blow up burst damage that some of the other items do. But this is pretty good on some top laners and things like that, like Renekton likes this, or just like bruisery type of champs. Aatrox likes this stuff that really wants the Omni Vamp and the move speed and the shield. If you can leverage all of that stuff, it can be a pretty good item. But as far as like Zed and Talon and stuff like that, it's a little underwhelming. So it's okay, but I think there are better choices. And then Prowler's Claw, this one is underrated. This one's pretty good. It's still only 100 damage, but it does increase your damage by 15% against the target. So if you have enough time to do a lot of damage, so like a Zed or something like that, this would be really solid. But the problem is you're not gonna have 3 extra seconds, because you're gonna go in on the assassin, or you're gonna go in on that mage. They're gonna have Dark Harvester, and you're gonna get one shot at them, and then they're gonna delete you. Probably. So it is good. It could do a lot of damage, but people are going to turn around and smack you most of the time on a squishy assassin. So anyways, it's okay. Some of the other toys, a lot of these are basically the same. Umbral got hard nerfed. It's where it's 400 more gold. It does give you ability haste, but very situational. They added in Serpent's Fang, which is okay against shields, but it just costs too much money. You don't want that most of the time. Kimpunk Chainsword, this is a cool like anti or like a Grievous Wounds anti-healing item. that's not Mercurial Scimitar, so it's okay, but just like I was talking about with Oblivion Orb, you really just want to stick with Executioners. Sanguine Blade's very similar to what it used to be. Ghost Blade's similar. This does not have CDR on it anymore, or ability haste, so they gave it a little more attack damage, like 5 attack damage, but it doesn't have the CDR. Collector can be good, but I think on a lot of assassins it would be a bait item. Like, this is more for, I think, 80 carries that have abilities that can do a lot of damage. So stuff like Jin, Misfortune, like Draven, stuff like that, I think would be much better for the collector than like Graves, something like that would like this. But yeah, the 20% crit is kind of weird on an assassin. So yeah, I think there are better options. I think this is a bait item, but it's all right. Serelda's Grudge is pretty nice. Serelda's Grudge, because it's got the 30% armor pen, the movement speed haste, and damaging abilities slow enemies for 3 seconds. Now, I don't know if like bleeds, like a Talon bleed, keeps this slow on them for the entire duration or not, but that is pretty good. It is very expensive, but it is a nice option. So assassins are okay. They have some decent stuff, but there's just, the mages got a lot more counterplay, and the 80 carries. 80 carries have shield bow now. Mages have a cheaper arm guard. They have Zhonya's. A lot of their like best big ticket items are going to have health on them. So it is going to be a little bit harder to blow up the mages, I think, than it has been in the past. So anyways, let's get into the tier list here. Now that we've had 40 minutes of items, I know that most people probably just want to hear about the items, but let's do the tier list for a little bit. So I think I covered most of this. A lot of the scaling champs are going to be way worse because there's no Rod of the Ages, there's no tier, so this is going to hurt your Cassidans, Cassiopeias, Rise. A lot of those types of champs are going to be way worse. Mana-hungry champs have fewer options. You're basically priced into going Leandries or Ludens, which I think is going to be a DPS hit from Night Harvester and Protobelt. So I think that it's probably weaker. Those champs are probably weaker. 80 champs, very overrated, like I mentioned before. Eclipse was really OP before they hot nerfed it several times. Now it's okay, but it's not crazy. And then 100 base damage is really low. Yes, it does have 30% scaling, but when you think most of the mage items have at least 200 base damage, and many of them even more than that, and they also scale with AP, that's going to be rough. Arm Guard, mentioned before, with Zhonya's, and base mythics have HP. Harvester, very good. Void's good. You have a lot of utility at 2,500 gold. Most of the assassin items are still going to be around 3,000 gold, and that used to be good because you're like, oh, I've got a lot of good items at 3,000. The mages all have to pay like, over 3,000 for their best items. Well, now they've got a lot of really cheap items at 2,500. So you've got the Banshee, Zhonya's, Cosmic, Void Staff, and then you even have Demonic at 3,000, which is really good. And as far as just like other roles and how that might impact what's getting played, supports, there's probably going to be less roaming once people figure out that the mages are really strong bottom lane, the Zyras and the Brands. And then it's just going to be squishier champs, so assassins are going to be pretty good, particularly mage assassins if you can get on them. But you got to be careful because they're going to have a lot more damage in general as well. ADCs are going to be more resistant than you might think because of Shield Bow, which is the best ADC item until they nerf it. So just be really careful about trying to all in the ADC. Check that Shield Bow and just make sure you're going to have enough damage to get through them. That's going to make it very hard on these assassins in kind of the early to mid game, because if you don't kill them immediately with Shield Bow, they end up getting like 27% lifesteal. And I think a lot of the best 80 carries are going to get smart and figure out the right item build, and they're going to get Shield Bow, and then I think Bloodthirster might be the second best item if they're against assassins. So on something like Draven or like what's her name, Samira, stuff like that, that scales really well with lifesteal, you could be in big trouble because they're going to have a huge shield off of both the Bloodthirster shield and the shield off of Shield Bow, and they can get up to 47% lifesteal off of that. So, and Draven, I mentioned Draven. Yeah, Draven, Samira, Jin might do something like that. So anyways, just be careful. The all-in, burst assassins that don't have much more in their tank after they blow everything, like a Zed or something, could have a hard time with that. And then top and jungle, low-key tanks are very strong right now, but they're not being played very much just because people hate playing tanks in the preseason. They want the big damage all caps videos, the YouTube highlights. So be careful with that. But like low key, the tanks are very good with the new Super Sunfire, the Sunfire Aegis. So it's really nice if you have a sustained DPS option, just in case you run into that super fed Maokai or Ornn or whatever in the top lane. Okay, let's get into optimal picks here. So Fizz, I still think, is going to be extremely strong right now. He has a high win rate, so if we go to mid lane, and I guess this video will probably be like an hour and 15 minutes. I haven't done a mid video in a while, though, so if we'll get pick ban influence here. Yeah, Fizz is almost at 57% right now, so he just works perfectly with everything that I just described. He's really mobile. He has great game against other assassins because he can outplay them with his trident. So he can outplay like a Zed ult or just any of these other types of champs. He's got an answer to it, potentially. And Night Harvester is super good on him. A lot of people are getting Proto Belt, but Harvester is going to be a bit better. 3% higher win rate than Proto Belt. So just keep that in mind. This is guaranteed. You can hit multiple people comfortably in team fights with Night Harvester. So that's going to allow you to snowball and kill more people. Instead of just having to Proto Belt and kill one person, now you can kill everybody with Night Harvester. So super strong item spike there. And then he's an abuser of the new Lich Bane as well. So when you get Lich Bane plus Night Harvester, you're really going to delete some people with Fizz. So super strong champion right now. Y'all are familiar with him. Y'all know how it works. He's very good. But what sets him apart is he's very safe. It's very difficult to gank him, and he has a lot of outplay potential, particularly against other assassins. And even in like long sustained fights, he can have some decent game in those situations too, because he has that bleed effect, and he can just kind of dance around them with his Q. A lot of those bruisers with his Q and his E and all that kind of stuff. He actually has some decent game against some other assassins out there. So very, very good champion overall. Works great with Hourglass also, if you need to get that second or third item. So he just lines up perfectly with, all of the new items. Echo is another one who's just like super strong right now. And these are kind of the usual suspects. Most of these, at least Fizz, Echo, and Katarina on my all-roll tier list that I do every patch. They're pretty much always there. These champions are just going to find a way. Their kits are just broken. They just have ways to find items that are good. Night Harvester, once again, is the notable item. A lot of people are probably going Proto Belt on him, but, Night Harvester, once again, 2% higher. So, definitely consider the Harvester. I did see an Echo really going off one game with Riftmaker, and I thought it was pretty good, but it is 7% lower than Night Harvester, so you don't want to do that. Same drill as Echo. It's going to be Night Harvester, Lich Bane, Zhonya's. Who abuses those items the best? These champions do? Okay, well, they're going to be the best champions. Like, right now, it's all about the items. Just who uses the best items. And these people do. Now, Echo, he doesn't have as much, he's harder to play. I'll put it that way than Fizz. Like, Fizz can outplay with just his trident. Echo has to, use his ult properly, not get chain CC'd and blown up. He has to set up his stun a little bit more. He can dodge stuff with the first jump on his E. So he does have, a little bit more skill cap to him, but he brings a lot of utility. He's also very good against other assassins because he has 2 health bars off of his ultimate. He has the potential in a team fight for a massive chain stun, which gives him a lot of extra utility. And he just, has a lot of mobility like Fizz, just multiple jumps. He has pretty respectable wave clear with his Q. Super fast, so he's just really, really good. There's very little weakness. He can get poked out early on in the laning phase, or if you get chain CC, like if Malzahar locks you up. As Malzahar is super good right now too, because he's very good into Fizz and Echo, partially because he's very good with Leandries. We'll talk about him here in a second, but so he does kind of have some bad matchups, but overall I think that he is going to be super strong. Now, Victor's kind of a weird one, but they reworked Victor, and they hot nerfed him, I think, yesterday pretty significantly because he had like a 58% win rate. So he is still good, though. He's still got like a 55% win rate. And the main thing with Victor, the items are okay on him, but it's really they just reworked his system, and I'm not a Victor main, and I really have not played Victor very much in the past. But he had to buy these Hextech augments with gold. Right, so he got some AP for that, but a lot of it he was paying for the ability to upgrade his stuff. So that means that he could not build other items, and he was just kind of trapped. And they're like pretty good items, his little core upgrades, but they took up an inventory slot, and he just kind of had to get them, right? So he just didn't have a lot of flexibility to get the new items. Well, I guess they wanted to let him get new mythics, and so but they wanted him to keep the passive. So now, as he farms up and as he kills people, he gets stacks. I don't have his wiki open, but he basically gets stacks, almost like GP with his Silver Serpents. He gets stacks, and then he can buy upgrades for his items without paying gold. So effectively, he's getting free gold just from farming and getting kills and assists now. So, he's getting thousands and thousands of free gold that he would have to spend on those core upgrades for free now. So, yeah, that's really strong. Then they did change the upgrade some. I don't remember if they nerfed him or buffed him. I know they just nerfed his E. But the fact that he's effectively getting, I don't know what the number is, something like 3,000 gold in a lot of games. And so now he can buy some of these mythics. That's what it's all about. You're just giving him a ton of extra gold in his pocket. And he is pretty good on a lot of different mythics. So you'll notice Night Harvester is the best. Once again, in terms of win rate, a lot of people don't build that item. But it's still really good. Luden's is a bait. It's worse than Leontre's. It's worse than Night Harvester. But Lichbane, another good user of Lichbane because of his Q. He can run people down. He likes the movement speed. Night Harvester also gives movement speed. I guess Luden's does as well. But yeah, just a really good abuser of a lot of the main items. Same drill. Harvester, Lichbane. Noticing a theme? And then Katarina's the next one. She's actually going to break the theme a little bit here. Katarina and Malzahar are going to break the theme. But she's really good too. She did get some dramatic changes again. And once again, I don't play her a lot. And she just has a weird build. But they got rid of Gunblade. So many people were crying, oh, this is the death of Katarina. She's never going to be able to play anymore. It's like, well, she still has some good options. So they changed around a lot of her stuff to where like on hit items work like 25% effectiveness. So that opens up weird builds. Like sometimes you see Blade the Ruined King on her now. I don't think that's good. They may have nerfed the on hit portion of it, but either way, she has more traditional items that are good. Again, Night Harvester, 3% over a lot of the other items, over Riftmaker. Now, curiously enough, Lichbane actually looks like it's the best or one of the best ones. Now, I don't fully understand, what's up with that. Your next hit, so that doesn't work with on hits, but it just has a little bit of burst on it. I don't know. It's not like it's just one or two people playing this. It's like, almost 3,000 people over the last couple of days have played Lichbane first, and it's working. So I don't know the story with that, but Riftmaker or Night Harvester is a very good option. Riftmaker's kind of a trap. I thought this item was going to be really good when I was in the preseason, and it is. It's just Night Harvester so much better. But yeah, I guess it is Lichbane second. I was thinking that Cat was going to, buck the trend and do something other than Lichbane, but no, it's Lichbane. Now, Nashor's Tooth is actually quite interesting. This is one, attack speed feels like it's completely wasted on her, but you do have that big on-hit damage. I think I read somewhere that her daggers can hit 13 times. So, but you're only getting a quarter per dagger, a quarter of the damage on hit, so that would be like 3 triggers of this Nashor's. So I don't know. It does have a high win rate on it. It's kind of weird, but either way, it's the same drill with her. So don't get baited by like the Blade the Ruined King rush, which I've seen some people doing. It's a trap. It's cute that like her stuff applies on hit, but it's not going to be that great. I don't think right there. It is curious if you do want to do on hit. I guess Nashor's is the way to go, but anyways, she's really strong right now. If you get those snowballs, if you get ahead. Now, not going to be as good against tanks, so you need to be very careful. Victor has good game against tanks later on because he can kite and he has like pretty respectable sustained damage with his ultimate and all that kind of stuff. So Victor can hang with the tanks. I think Fizz, in the right kind of situation, he can dance around them. Like he can get to the back line and he has enough sort of sustained mobility with his Q, with his E, and his ability just to jump and bypass all of the tank CC. And get on the 80 carry. So Fizz can dance enough to get around the tanks, I think. Echo is okay into tanks. He's got a lot of tricks with his stun, his, just a bunch of his mobility. He can also dance around him. Victor can as well. Katarina, if she gets chain CC'd or she just can't blow someone up instantly and doesn't get those resets, is going to have a harder time with a Maokai in her face or an Amumu or something like that. So just be careful with that with Katarina. Malzahar is another one who has risen back up to fame. Now, he's been one of my favorites. He has a pretty low skill cap champion, to be honest, but I just really like the DPS Warlock type of champions themed in general, and he's definitely making a comeback. He's very good against Assassins, which he's always been that, but now he just has a much better item build path. He doesn't have to get Leandries into Rylai's. He can just get Leandries, and then he can get other items like the Demonic Embrace for the double burn. So they did just nerf this, so we'll see how it works with the Leandries, but still going to be a very good item. Leandries is better than Night Harvester on him, so you can finally get something different. Now, for this one, it actually does appear that Riftmaker is better. The fights are going to go longer, and your dots and your pets and all that stuff can also apply Riftmaker. So, against tanks, maybe Riftmaker is better. Now, that is a super low sample size, though. That's only 100 or so games. So be aware of that, but I think Leandries is still just going to be a match made in heaven. It's got a lot of CDR for him, so he has more ults. He's got the ability power, of course. He has the mana. He can be kind of a mana hog if you don't get blues, because his E does cost a lot of mana. But yeah, it's just pretty much everything that he wants. Dots with Leandries. Demonic Embrace is going to be the best second one. So that's an excellent 1-2 punch of just lots and lots of burn damage. In team fights. And keep in mind, your minions proc it too. So whenever your little minions are just running around hitting everybody in team fights, that's going to be triggering the Demonic Embrace, just like Teemo Shrooms, just like Zyra Plants. So anything that he has dots plus pets. Usually anything that has dots or pets is going to be good with like the Leandries and Demonic. He has both. So really, really strong champion. What's he getting? Like Airy? Yeah. Because whenever these dots are burning, I don't think the item burns trigger Airy. I'm not 100% if they do or not. Like, if the Leandries burn triggers it or not, it might. But anyways, Airy's going to be zipping around doing a ton of damage in fights off of all of your dots and DPS. So I think Malzahar is very, very good utility, type of champion right now. And then next couple ones, I'm going to say Azir. Now, I'm partially biased in this just because Jason plays Azir all the time, and he's very good on Azir. At least for a gold player. I mean, I think that he definitely has, the mechanics to be platinum. Maybe even low diamond, if we're working on some, like, decision-making and stuff like that and synergies and things. But I see, and he makes a lot of good Azir plays. And I'm here to tell you that, and I've watched some videos of Azir as well, other, like, challenger Azirs. He's really, really good right now. And I think a lot of people are sleeping on Azir. I remember watching this, like, Zyrene video from Pro Guides. And they're like, never play Azir in solo queue, blah, blah, blah. It's like, he is hard to play, but he doesn't require as much time to scale now as he has in the past, because some of these items are very, very strong on him, even early on in the game. And he has the potential to make plays and get kills early. So that's a big thing that's different between him and like Cassiopeia, is that he can be a playmaker. If you do that drift and, insec, as they call it, like knock people back into your tower or into your team and things like that, you can be an active playmaker and snowball yourself early on. You don't have to wait on items. You don't have to wait on tier or rod or anything like that. So yes, he does perform better over time with levels, but he can still do stuff early. He can, be pretty oppressive in lane with his Q, harass. He can push well. He's got the great utility. He can escape. That ultimate is really good at peeling, and it's really good at engaging if you need to do that. So he has a lot of different options available to him. And there are several items that are good. And just in case some of them get nerfed, he has lots of backup items. So Leandry's obviously going to be very good on him. He likes the mana, the CDR. He does lots of damage over time with his soldiers, which are basically like pets. Riftmaker actually has a pretty high win rate, although a low sample size there. Now, I think Night Harvester is also super strong on him because you can proc it on the whole team really easily with your soldiers. And once again, it doubles down on your early game power. Once you get Night Harvester, it's off to the races. You can blow people up so fast with Night Harvester with Azir if you just go in and combo them with your ult and just crack them with all your soldiers. So, and you're already going to be super strong late game. So the statistics here are, it's going to make this look kind of wimpy, but just from my firsthand experience, with Jason trying out Night Harvester, and I've seen this a lot, it's really, really good and gives him that extra early game presence that he needs, because everyone knows he's a badass late game, right? It's just, can he snowball and get to that point early game? And I think with stuff like Night Harvester, you definitely can. So Riftmaker, super good if you need to get through tanks later on in the game. I think that can be a good item for sure. But Night Harvester, I think people are sleeping on that. Nasher's obviously going to be super strong on him. You pretty much want that second item the vast majority of the time. Then you have a good suite of utility items that are going to be really strong. Now, low-key, you'll notice one of the best ones here is going to be Void Staff. A lot of people don't get that on him. Super, super strong item. Very cheap. So Zanya's kind of a trap item. It can be good. A lot of people will get it, but it has a much lower win rate than some of the other big-ticket items. Like Void Staff. Even something like Demonic Embrace can be pretty good later on as well. So anyways, he has a bunch of different items that he can get now, and he's just really good with almost all of them, right? Like, he's good with Demonic, he's good with Void, in some situations, Zanya's can be good, Banshees can be good sometimes, so he's got a lot of different stuff he can, even Deathcap, he's got good ratios. So I just think he's excellent, and he's probably the best overall choice if they have a mixed team with like big tanks you're going to have to cut through. The Amumu, the Nunu, the Ornn, or whatever. Very, very good at that. So I think like Malzahar and probably Azir are going to be the best, like, well-rounded. They can do stuff early, but they also scale and perform really, really well against tanks later. Okay, and then Akali is someone that has been climbing up quite a bit. Very high skill cap champion in general, and now she was at 52% yesterday. Now she's at 51%. So that should start sounding some alarms. When you see Akali get over 50% win rate, it's pretty serious. Because she's really, really hard to play, and there's so many bad Akali players out there. And this is, again, something where everyone thought, oh, Gunblade's gone, Akali's dead, there's no way she can do anything anymore. It's like, yeah, she can. So Night Harvester, again, gonna be the all-star here. A lot of people are probably wanting to go like the Riftmaker, which is, to be fair, not that much lower. It's like 1% lower. And this is good for just kind of, once again, charging up long fights against tanks and stuff like that. And this might be your best option, but just get them dead, man. Just Night Harvester. As I've said over and over again in this video, and as you've seen with, probably 90% of the champs we've looked at, Night Harvester is going to be a superior item. And so it's like, yeah, she did lose some stuff, right? She lost her Gunblade, she lost Night Harvester, or she lost, some of her other toys. But Night Harvester is fantastic. And then Lichbane. Again, Lichbane coming in clutch, doing those big hits. Now, once again, it did get nerfed, and these stats are, it's only been nerfed for a day. So these stats may not fully reflect that, but it looks like a lot of people really like the Demonic Embrace on her. I guess if you're going Riftmaker, that makes sense. If you're going for like longer fights, maybe Demonic Embrace is going to be better. And you can stall out. It does make sense because you can hit someone with your Q and then do your smoke and just kind of stall and wait on your energy. And then once you get to that, 5 stacks, then you go all in and do like your big damage. So her like trading patterns do make sense with Riftmaker. And if she's going for that, Demonic is good. It buys you time. It has the health. The damage over time will benefit from the true damage that you get off of this. And you do get the tankiness from it. You get the extra 10 magic resistant armor and stuff like that. So it does make sense. It is pretty good. But I'd probably still go Lich. Just kill them. Harvester, Lich, they're dead. That's what I would do. And then, low-key, again, Void Staff, sneaking in with a pretty high win rate. I guess... it is going to be a little bit lower than some of the other options on her, to be honest. But, something like Cosmic Drive or Rabadons can be good. So there's just a lot of stuff. It's just very versatile. Different items you can get on mages. So, anyways, she's good. Great assassin. Good mobility. You can have some good, like, late game kind of damage if you do go for the Riftmaker plus Demonic. You can probably do okay into tanks. Swain is another one that's kind of low-key right now. A lot of people aren't really playing him mid, but I think he has the potential. He's pretty good bot lane. But he just synergizes really well with a lot of these items. You know, the Leandries, Demonic Embrace, Ravenous Hunter. They did nerf Ravenous Hunter a little bit, but, you know, very good Zhonya's user, very good Demonic Embrace user, and those are both just strong items. So excellent matchup into Assassins, pretty good game into tanks, just because the longer the fight goes, the more he's healing, the more the Leandries and the Demonic Embrace are stacking up damage. So they're really good tanky, you know, DPS option with respectable CC with his E. So overall, going to be a pretty strong choice there. And then Annie, I believe, is still pretty good. Great Harvester user or Proto Belt. Just get him dead. Once again, just go in, blow him up. I think that's what she's going to be good at. So I do think that Ludens is a trap overall because she's just not going to have the poke. Like, you know, why would you want that item? Ludens is actually doing better than Harvester, so that is something to consider. Proto Belt is doing better than Ludens, though, and Leandries is also a decent option on her just because, once again, the bear can apply that to a bunch of different people in fights. So if it's going to be a longer fight against tanks, Leandries can be pretty good. I would probably opt for Proto Belt, honestly, just because getting closer is such a big deal on Annie, just making sure you can get close enough to Tibbers people. And you do kind of want to blow up a single target at the start of the fight, so having more upfront, guaranteed upfront damage against a single person is probably superior to Night Harvester in her case. But either way, super strong item, or super strong champion in general. I think maybe like Void Staff second would probably be where I would go on her. Maybe Death Cap. I think Void Staff, though, it just kill him. And Void Staff, you know, as I mentioned earlier, like the penetration is just so good with like the very high damage mythic items like the Leandries, like the Night Harvester, because it increases the damage those items do. So anyways, very strong. And then Diana's another one that is sort of like pretty good right now, high win rate overall. I had her just a little bit lower because she is a bit more vulnerable in lane, I think, early on. I don't know about her matchups into Fizz and Echo. Maybe they're better than I think they are. But she doesn't have the escapes. She just doesn't have as much mobility as something like a Fizz, Echo, those types of champs. So I'm not really sure. Obviously, she's going to like Lichbane. She probably likes Harvester. The Harvester Lichbane, you know, match made in heaven with her. So maybe she has enough burst with her double jumps or whatever to kill people with that. So good champion overall, good solid DPS. Not as much outplay potential as some of the others. A little bit easier to play than like an Echo or a Fizz. But, you know, maybe the numbers are just so high that it doesn't matter. She just deletes people when she goes in. I'm not sure. I know that she does get a shield, which is, like, pretty nice. I don't remember the AP scaling on the shield. But maybe she has good matchups into some of these assassins just with her brute strength. You know, maybe they're trying to dance around and she just punches them in the face. I don't know. I haven't really seen the matchup that much. I haven't played it personally, but she's got a really high win rate, and these champions are very popular, and they also have a high win rate, so there's probably something going on there. And then tier 3, that's where I'm going to start putting some of the assassins, the AD stuff. I just think the mages are just far better in general. I just think they have way better itemization than I mentioned before, and I think they just spike just way harder off of multiple items. So if you do want to play assassins, though, I think Zed is probably still the main one just because he still does have access to the backline really easily. You are going to be going against a shield bow, which can be rough, you know, if you try to kill the ADC anymore. And they did just nerf Eclipse really hard, so we'll have to see how that goes. It does have a much higher win rate. Look at this. Dustblade, that OP Dustblade, like, oh my god, Invisible Zed. It doesn't even have a positive win rate right now on Zed. It's literally negative win rate on Zed. Prowler's Claw, way lower. That's actually kind of surprising. I thought that this item would be better than that on Zed, so maybe it is trash. Eclipse is nice because you can actually survive if you go in and kill somebody and maybe get away, but once again, it's been really hard nerfed, so we'll have to see how that goes down. Maybe it's because the matchup with other assassins, you get the big shield and the movement speed. But pretty decent choice there. And then it's just kind of like whatever you need for the situation after that. Ghostblade is still very good. It does have more AD on it. It does not have the CDR anymore. This item is really good against other assassins. Edge of Night. Very pesky, very difficult for a lot of supports to CC you as well. So, pretty good item. So it's just kind of the same drill. You just get like some combination of Ghostblade and, I guess pretty much it's more Steamline. Ghostblade, Knight's Edge, because you don't have, like, you have to choose either Duskblade or Eclipse. I don't think Cleaver is where you want to be in a lot of these situations. The Collector does have a nice win rate. I mean, maybe it's better than I think it is on champions like Zed. So you can do that. Sorel can be pretty good in some of these situations too. So you have a few options there. Not as many options as the mages, but you do have a couple of options in there that could be pretty good. You see, even this item, presumably people are only buying this if they're against like a lot of shields. And it still is not performing that well. Like, this is the kind of, like, hard counterpick item that you would think would have, like, a 60% win rate. Because people would only play it, or would only get this item against very specific matchups where it's going to be good. But even then, it's still, like, not performing that well. So that's not a good sign. Talon, I'm not even sure if Talon's over 50% right now. Who's, like, one of the main people that people always complain about when assassins are good. Now, I mean, I know someone's going to say, well, a lot of Talons are just bad players. You have to be a good player to play Talon and stuff. It's like, well, sort of, but you've got the Akali argument, right? It's like Akali also is really hard to play. I think probably way harder than Talon to play perfectly. And she's got a 51, even a 52% yesterday. So, I think it's looking rough. And once again, Eclipse is going to be the best thing on him, but just got hard nerfed. And Duskblade, once again, the OP Duskblade, 46% win rate. 46% win rate on Talon right now. And Duskblade hasn't even been that nerfed. I think it was marginally nerfed out there. So we'll see. Leandre's got nerfed also. It's not like the mage items haven't been nerfed too. Everything's been nerfed from when it was first previewed. Demonic Embrace, for God's sakes, used to be previewing like 40% armor and magic resist and burning 4% per second of their max health. So it's not like the mages haven't been nerfed also, right? But anyways, it's not looking good. It's like Eclipse barely has a positive win rate. The other ones are deep in the negative on Talon. So again, it's like, yes, if you have challengers, with 15 kills against like iron players on the PBE, this stuff looks OP. But when it comes to the real world, it's like, no, you're going to be running up against a much cheaper, more powerful Seekers. Mages with much more HP on their items. You're going to be running up against 80 carries that are going to take Shield Bow and have other options like Bloodthirster to make your life very difficult in their first couple of items. So it's, and a lot of the other like top laners are going to just smash you, right? If they, because they can take Eclipse too, or you've got things like Renekton with like Gore Drinker or Stride Breaker or just almost anything of those top lane bruiser items are going to be terrible matchups for you. And then you've got these tanks with like the Sunfire Aegis, you've got a Mumu, Nunu, a lot of these like mega tanks, and you're just never going to kill them through that Aegis and some of those other items they can get. So it's a lot harder out there because the tanks are still bad matchups, and the stuff that those things that were your best matchups, like some of the mages and definitely the 80 carries, are not as easy to pick off as they used to be in the past. So it is rough out there, I think, right now for 80 assassins. I think it honestly it is. So we'll see. And I mean, you can see by the win, he actually has a higher win rate over time, which seems really weird to me, but I guess that's how it is. That's definitely not a good sign. If in the first 15 to 20 minutes you have a 46% win rate on average, you should be like, if the game's ending in 20 minutes and you're playing Talon, like you should have like a 60+% win rate, because that's when he should be strongest, I think. I mean, maybe I don't know the intricacies of that champion, but either way. And I know we're pretty much over time here, so I was mentioning the last couple ones. So Zed and Talon, like, eh, I mean, not that great in my opinion. But like Zed more than Talon, I think has a little bit more game because of his ultimate, and he has more outplay potential. Talon's kind of just all in. I feel like on just his raw numbers, either he kills you or he doesn't. He opens with his ult, and it's just a stat check in my opinion. But Zed, like, there's more nuance that you can do with Zed with his shadows and things like that. But anyways, okay, so Kennen I think is low-key really strong right now, and a lot of people are sleeping on Kennen, and it's just Harvester. So good on him. He can trigger it on so many different people. He's got almost a 54% win rate, so I haven't seen it personally a lot. So that makes me a little hesitant to put him higher than that. But, you know, in team fights, and just in general, he just seems like he synergizes really well with a lot of the other items that are out there, right? Like, Proto Belt could be good. Obviously, the new Zanyas would be really good on him. And I think so many people have just forgotten about this champ. Look at this. I mean, it's on a low sample size, but a 63% win rate on Harvester, which is like 10% higher than Proto Belt. Now, yes, once again, there are less people playing it, but, you know, Zanya's, Void Staff, it's just the same drill. He's just really good. Now, I don't know his matchups in the mid. Maybe they're just terrible. He does have a 54% win rate, low play rate, but I think people just forgot about this champion. I think he's really good. I mean, I guess you could put Rumble in here as well. And Rumble is very good against certain champions that are popular right now, like Akali. But I didn't really look up Rumble. But yeah, Kennen, Rumble was popular for a second there in mid lane. But I think Kennen is really strong right now. Where's Rumble? Rumble's doing pretty well too. But yeah, just good, great team fight mage if that's what you want. You know, he's going to be able to blow some people up. Brand is another one that I put in here, another team fight mage, and he got some serious buffs a couple of patches ago. He did get like some minor nerfs on this patch, but he's dangerous because, you know, assassins just kind of eat him up. But if you have a non-assassin you're up against, just kind of like a control mage, like a Malzahar, a Victor, something like that, I think that he can have some pretty good matchups in theory. He's really good in the bot lane as well. But just good wave clear with his E now, an all-star with the Leandri's demonic combination. And if they're grouped up and you get a lot of those bounces going on, it's some big game. And he's even like decent against tanks because he can stun them when they run at him with his Q. And he just does so much like percent damage health off of Leandri's plus his passive plus demonic embrace that I think he's definitely worth considering. And you can even get a Rylai's later just to help you kite out because that burn is going to keep ticking. I believe it's going to keep applying that slow over time. So you can actually kite out a lot of the tanks with the brand potentially. And then Galio is the final one that I'll mention here. He's good utility champ, does a lot of stuff for your team. He's got good roaming with his ult, good utility. He's tanky, he's hard to kill. He's got almost a 54% win rate right now. So yeah, he's just kind of a nice blend of tankiness plus damage, sort of like Swain. That I mentioned earlier. He's obviously tankier than Swain is, but just good items overall. Proto Belt is what a lot of people are getting. It just allows you to get closer. Now, that is really nice that when you dash closer, you get 75% movement speed for 2 seconds. I didn't think about that, but that actually is super good with Galio because then you're going to be able to land your taunt almost guaranteed if they don't flash. So that is a really nice combination. And then, of course, Zanya's is going to be good. And even something like Demonic is surprisingly pretty strong because he does decent, you know, damage over time, and the extra armor and magic resist are going to be, you know, very high quality with him. So I think he has a lot of good options there. I'm not sure about Cosmic. I mean, I guess this makes sense for similar reasons. If you hit him with your Q, you're going to be able to run up and probably get your taunt on him with the extra movement speed. So pretty respectable, pretty respectable. Okay, so that's pretty much, that's going to be it for this video. I know it's a super long video, but I did go over all the items as well. And, you know, a couple of honorable mentions. Mid is almost always the most diverse role. There's so many different kinds of champs you can play. Some of the stuff has gotten squeezed to the margins that don't really use the items that well. But stuff that I think has a high potential. I've seen really good Yasuo players. In general, he has a low win rate right now. But I think that like Yasuo and Yone, I think a lot of people are just getting the wrong items. I think you need to go shield bow on him. And I feel like Infinity Edge is wrong. Infinity Edge second is wrong, in my opinion. I mean, let me see statistically. So, like, shield bow is one of the best looking items. Now, some people are going for this Ginsu's rush, which seems really weird. This did just get nerfed. Ginsu's did, so maybe it's not as good as I think it is. But I don't know. I feel like something like shield bow into I was gonna say Bloodthirster, and then Infinity Edge like third. I don't know. Maybe it messed him up that everything's only a 20% crit now instead of 25, so he doesn't hit that 100% crit. Maybe I just don't know the builds as well as I think I do. But I don't know. I feel like I've seen the Immortal Shield Bow do really well, like Immortal plus just other types of items. It looks like Storm Razor actually does pretty well too. It's like a second item. So I'm not entirely sure, but I know that you definitely want to start with Shield Bow, and I do see some Yasuo's like not getting that. And then Yone, I feel like he does have some potential as well. And then who else? I've seen Teemo, like, I don't know if mid lane is where you want to put him or top. It depends on the matchups, but Teemo, like, if you do get the Leandries into Demonic into like Void Staff or something, is actually quite strong. It's actually really good. The double burn. If people get that, maybe people will finally quit getting like on hit Teemo and actually get AP Teemo now with the double burn, because I think that has a lot of potential to be very strong. And then just like weird stuff like Wukong or like Renekton, I think could be still pretty good middle. What else? If you're really good on like certain like Zoe and stuff like that, that can be pretty strong. Cassio's someone where I wasn't really sure, because like I think Azir is really good, but Cassio needs the mana a lot more than Azir, and the fact that Rod got taken out of the game and Tyr is just such trash now, I'm just not sure. I mean, maybe Leandries is enough, but she does take a while to come online. She does need more items. She doesn't have as good a playmaking potential as Azir does, I don't think. She does have her ult, but I've seen Sylas do very well too. Certain Sylases do really well, and then God, Kassadin's 53% win rate, or 43. I love it. Get that garbage out of here. So like maybe Sylas is pretty strong. Vladimir, it seems like he'd be like good with this type of meta, but maybe not. So, anyways, that's gonna be it. Thank you very much. Hope you enjoyed this. Be sure to like and subscribe if you did, and I'll see you next time.